Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. When you think of ancient Egypt, what comes to mind? Towering pyramids, mysterious tombs, and a civilization living peacefully along the Nile, right? Well, that's only half the story. Today, we flipping the script to reveal the other side of the pharaohs not as divine rulers in golden palaces, but as ruthless warlords on the battlefield. Get ready, because we're marching into the epic history of when the pharaohs went to war. For a long time, the deserts and seas protected Egypt, allowing its unique culture to flourish. But this isolation didn't last forever. As the kingdom grew, so did its ambitions and its enemies. The pharaoh wasn't just a religious leader. He was the commander-in-chief, the supreme general of Egypt's armies. His divine status was proven not just by building temples, but by crushing his enemies and expanding his empire. And to do that, they needed an army. So what did this ancient war machine look like? Early on, the Egyptian army was mostly made up of infantry armed with simple weapons, spears, axes, and daggers, protected by light wooden shields. Think of them as a massive, organized militia. But everything changed around 1650 BCE with the arrival of the Hyksos. These invaders from the Near East brought with them revolutionary military technology, the horse-drawn chariot. The chariot was the ancient equivalent of a tank. It was fast, mobile, and devastating. The Egyptians, initially overwhelmed, were quick learners. After driving out the Hyksos, they adopted and perfected chariot warfare. An Egyptian chariot was a masterpiece of engineering lightweight, fast, and manned by two people, a driver and an archer. These weren't heavy, clumsy battering rams. They were mobile missile platforms racing across the battlefield, showering the enemy with arrows and creating chaos. The pharaoh himself would often lead the charge in his own gleaming, decorated chariot. This new military power ushered in the new kingdom, Egypt's age of empire. And the pharaoh who truly defined this era was Thutmose III. Often called the Napoleon of Egypt, he was a military genius. He ascended to the throne as a child, with his stepmother Hatshepsut ruling as regent. But once he took power, he spent the next decades on a relentless series of military campaigns. Thutmose III conducted at least 17 campaigns into the Levant, modern-day Syria, and Palestine. His most famous victory was at the Battle of Megiddo. He faced a coalition of Canaanite kings who were blocking Egypt's trade routes. His generals advised him to take the safe, long road around a mountain pass. But Thutmose, in a bold and risky move, chose to lead his army through a narrow, dangerous ravine. He knew the enemy wouldn't expect it. His gamble paid off. The Egyptian army emerged from the pass, surprising and trapping the enemy forces. The ensuing battle was a decisive victory for Egypt, securing its control over the region for generations. Thutmose III didn't just win battles, he established a true empire, demanding tribute and loyalty from conquered lands. Fast forward about 2 centuries, and we meet another legendary warrior pharaoh, Ramesses II, also known as Ramesses the Great. If Thutmose was the Napoleon, Ramesses was the master of propaganda. He ruled for an incredible 66 years and made sure everyone knew about his military exploits, covering temple walls across Egypt with scenes of his triumphs. His most famous battle was the Battle of Kadesh, fought against the powerful Hittite Empire in what is now Syria. This was a clash of superpowers. Ramesses, young and eager to prove himself, led his army deep into enemy territory. But he was tricked by Hittite spies who gave him false information, leading him straight into a massive ambush. The Hittite chariots heavier, and with a three-man crew slammed into the Egyptian forces, scattering them. Ramesses found himself isolated, his division collapsing around him. By his own account, which he famously carved on temple walls, he was completely surrounded. But instead of surrendering, he prayed to the god Ammon and single-handedly charged into the enemy ranks 6 times, his personal courage rallying his troops. Reinforcements arrived just in time, and the Egyptians managed to fight the Hittites to a standstill. While Kadesh wasn't the clean, decisive victory Ramesses claimed it was still an incredible feat of leadership and survival. The battle ended in a stalemate, and years later, Ramesses and the Hittite king signed the world's first known peace treaty, a copy of which is even displayed at the United Nations today. Ramesses the Great showed that a pharaoh's power was not just about winning, but about surviving against all odds and shaping the narrative of victory. Of course, the Egyptian war machine wasn't just about chariots and famous pharaohs. The backbone of the army was the infantry, the foot soldiers. These men were well-trained and organized into divisions named after the gods, like Ammon, Ra, and Ptah. They were armed with the khopesh, a terrifying sickle-shaped sword designed for hooking shields and slashing enemies. Archers were also crucial, providing long-range support with their powerful composite bows. Beyond the battlefield, the Egyptians were masters of siege warfare. When they encountered a fortified city, they would build siege towers and use battering rams to break down the gates. They also used psychological warfare, portraying their enemies in art as weak and chaotic, reinforcing the idea of Egyptian superiority and divine order. Military success was directly tied to the prosperity and stability of the kingdom. The spoils of war gold, cattle, and prisoners funded the construction of massive temples and enriched the state. But like all great empires, Egypt's military dominance eventually faded. New powers like the Assyrians and Persians rose, armed with iron weapons that were superior to Egypt's bronze. The age of the chariot passed, and Egypt, weakened by internal struggles, found itself on the defensive. The invasions by the Sea Peoples, a mysterious confederation of seafaring raiders, further destabilized the region and hastened the decline of the new kingdom. So, the next time you see an image of a serene pharaoh, remember the other side of the coin. Remember the dust and thunder of 10,000 chariots at Kadesh. Remember the strategic genius of Thutmose III at Megiddo. And remember the countless unnamed soldiers who marched for miles under a brutal sun, carrying the might of Egypt on their shoulders. The pharaohs built their golden empire not just with stone and faith, but with strategy, steel, and blood. Their story is a powerful reminder that even the most spiritual and artistic civilizations often have a heart of a warrior. Thanks for joining me on this march through ancient history. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Egypt's military past, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that challenge what you thought you knew about the ancient world. Let me know in the comments which warrior pharaoh you find most fascinating. See you in the next video.